Namaskar, hello and welcome to Sunset TV. I am Tina Jha. You're watching Perspective, in which today we are going to focus on the observations and suggestions of the Standing Committee on Education, Women, Children, Youth and Sports, which submitted its report on the reforms in content and design of school textbooks in the just concluded winter session of Parliament. Chaired by Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe, the committee held consultations with a wide range of stakeholders, including the state and central institutions responsible for drafting textbooks and circular, as well as education experts and civil society representatives. Following which, it made a number of observations and recommendations on the quality of textbooks, updating syllabus, depiction of history, representation of women in textbooks, also information on drug and internet addiction, and so on. So in Perspective today, we will analyze these aspects that aim to transform our school education system. And besides, we will also discuss the disruptions and challenges posed by the pandemic to children's education and how we are addressing them. Joining me on the program are two distinguished panelists. So let me first introduce them to you. With me in the studio is Dr. Sridhar Srivastav. He's Director, NCERT. Welcome to the program, sir. And Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe is Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, and also head of the department-related Parliamentary Standing Committee on Education, Women, Children, Youth and Sports. Thank you, Dr. Sahasrabudhe, for joining me on Perspective today on Sunset TV. Allow me to begin the program today with you as the chair of this standing committee, which has made several recommendations on improving the overall school education system. Take us through the key recommendations on improving the quality of textbooks, firstly, because that is where the larger concern is all about. We have achieved access to education in the country. Now, the next big challenge is to ensure quality education.
As you rightly pointed out, the big challenge is, of course, the quality of education. And in that, the content of the textbooks definitely play a key role. And so far in the past, if I may make a very sweeping statement kind of, that unfortunately the dark shadow of Macaulay and his thinking on our education system in general was never done away with resolutely, if I may put it this way. But the new education policy, which was unveiled last year and on the basis of which now the national curriculum framework is being prepared, and in the light of which the textbooks are now going to be given some shape. So all these things require to reflect the thinking that in a way we are now free from the dominance of the Macaulayan thinking. And in that regard, what was required was to have a relook at the content of our textbooks prepared by NCERT and which are kind of a part of the, which are according to the syllabus framed by the CBSE. And therefore, many members of parliament suggested us that we should take this up. So we decided to take this up. Some 20,000 persons wrote emails to us, close to 24 institutions and organizations and individuals, including a student, deposed before the committee, and they shared their views. And after deliberations, which went on for at least about 4 months, we have now submitted our report to the parliament. And the report has a number of key recommendations. And the first recommendation is that there has to be a kind of periodical review of textbooks and their content. Today, for example, if some mistake is pointed out in certain textbook, maybe of geography or maybe of English language or science or whichever the subject may be, the mistake is assessed, the complaint is looked into, but the rectification takes a bit long. We have suggested that there has to be a mechanism where the rectifications are also announced immediately, and some kind of a erranda or corrigendum, whatever you call it, could also be introduced. So we want a periodical review of textbooks. Then we also have recommended that the textbook should be child-friendly, with pictures, graphics, QR codes, audio-visual material. Yes. All these things also should form a part of the textbooks. And the the idea also should be take the children beyond the textbooks. That is also something very required. Our committee looked into the presentation of textbooks also. And for several years, the Supreme Court ruling about reducing the burden on the back of the school-going children is under discussion. And we have recommended the experiment undertaken successfully by the Maharashtra Textbook Bureau during the regime of the previous government, where they have prepared textbooks which are taking care of all the subjects at one time. So for 3 months, there is one textbook taking care of all the subjects.
Absolutely. And whether
Next 3 months, again, there will be one textbook. So likewise, we have recommended several changes. And insofar as the content is concerned, we have also suggested that equal representation should be there to all the periods of history, all the regions in India, all the freedom fighters who contributed
certainly,
in the
Dr. Sahasrabudhe, that is a very important aspect, and I'll come back to you and ask you to elaborate it further, because depiction of history is very, very important as far as school textbooks is concerned. But let me get in a perspective from the NCERT director who is present with us in the studio to understand, as far as enhancing the quality of textbooks is concerned in the country. There have been certain recommendations of which Dr. Sahasrabudhe spoke about. One of the suggestions has been that all NCERT and SCERT textbooks be published in all 8 scheduled languages and with further translations into local languages, which are also not included in the official list. How practical or how feasible is this recommendation going forth? And also there have been suggestions with regard to a periodic updation of the syllabus, because that, Dr. Sahasrabudhe points out, was the view of the panel looking into the various inputs that came in from 20,000 stakeholders. So going forward, what is your response to it? How practical is this recommendation?
You see, first of all, I would say that I am stating on my personal behalf, that we learn a lot from the deliberation of this committee, and we welcome the recommendations. On the issue that you just mentioned, NCERT publishes a textbook in English, Hindi and Urdu. These are the 3 languages we are publishing all our titles, our textbooks. And many states are adopting or adapting our textbooks. So they in turn translate in their languages also. So obviously we are of the view that the children should get the content in their mother tongue, at least at the primary stage, and what NEP says also, because that is the ease of understanding and the things, and most importantly, they are expressive in their language, their mother tongue, in the classroom also, because NCERT textbooks emphasize on going beyond the textbook, as Honorable Chairman was just mentioning, going beyond the textbook. Going beyond the textbook is mostly possible in the tongue of that child.
Certainly.
And there also the NEP says it very beautifully that the child has to move from the home language to the school language. There could be difference between the home language and school language also. So we are just trying to address the teacher training also. The policy says of multilingualism. So we are trying to cover it through teacher education also. So we are for that. We are duty bound for all these recommendations, and we will be doing.
And also the panel has recommended that, and citing the example of Maharashtra, how successfully they have been able to ensure that the bags of school students are lightened. That is one concern of the parents. I am a parent as well.
Yeah.
And it's very, very concerning for all of us when our child is going to the school carrying a very, very heavy bag. So can it be adapted at a national level wherein we have a single textbook encompassing all subjects, or other mechanisms that we can devise over the course of time wherein the student's bag is lightened but their learning outcome is not reduced?
You see, I cannot in conformity comment on the exactly adopting the Maharashtra model, but the other point that you are mentioning, it has been said very beautifully in the national education policy itself. You see, what we have to see for the future, we have to reduce the content load.
Absolutely.
We have not to load the bag of the child with the information only. I am not saying curriculum load, I am saying content load. And we have to provide the opportunity to the children for inquisitive thinking, questioning, collaborative problem solving. Beyond the textbook includes all these things. Child has to be well assimilated with the environment. And we have developed our, for example, there is a Nipun mission you might have come to know. And there also we have designed learning goals, learning outcome goals for the foundational stage. There also we are talking about health and well-being. We want the child to be emergent communication, having emergent communication skill. Child has to be informed learner. So we are talking about experiential learning, and we have to reduce the content load.
Okay.
But national education, after national education policy, we are involved in enacting national curriculum framework, and all these points are to be raised, deliberated, discussed, and we have to come out with our solutions, keeping the framework which is posited there in the National Education Policy 2020.
Okay, moving on to the other aspect, Dr. Sahasrabudhe, that you were earlier on mentioning, on the manner in which history is depicted in our school textbooks. Now, of course, it's very important because the school textbooks are the first window to school students into our history, and therefore very, very important that they be taught history in the right manner and they have the proper information about the rich civilization that we boast of. What is the kind of recommendation that came from the panel as far as depiction of history is concerned? What is the kind of assessment that was made after which this kind of recommendation was made?
See, we in fact have recommended that the department should study how the textbooks of countries with almost equal civilizational history are prepared, and how and what kind of weightage do they give to various eras of their history. That may provide us some kind of an insight. We have also invoked some guidelines which have been prepared by UNESCO insofar as textbook preparation is concerned. And therefore, in the light of this international experience, if we could learn something, that is what we have suggested. But we are very unambiguous in stating, and I'm reading from the report, the committee, in the context of the unequal representation of various periods and dynasties in the history textbooks by the stakeholders, observes that NCERT should take a relook at the guidelines for the writing of the history textbooks so that equal weightage and importance is given to the various eras, periods, and events in the history textbooks. Similarly, we observe that school textbooks do not give adequate coverage to some of the great Indian empires like that of Vikramaditya, Rajaraja Chola, Chalukya, Vijayanagar, Gondwana, Travancore, and Ahom of the Northeast region, whose contributions in expansion of India's standing on the world stage cannot be ignored. So there is a very clear case that we don't teach. For example, let's take case of Lachit Barphukan. I'm sure the NCERT, CBSE, and all other officials would agree with me that in the current textbooks, there are not adequate references to, say, the Ahom kingdom or the warrior and great hero like Lachit Barphukan. Similarly, about Rajaraja Chola, it was due to the Chola Empire that India could have its footprint on the entire Southeast Asia, for that matter. But then many people do not know about Rajaraja Chola. Same is about Vikramaditya or Vijayanagar at the same time. And therefore, this kind of imbalance requires to be done away with.
Okay.
We have also mentioned, and I'm sure everybody would agree, that women leaders or women heroes that we have in our history, including Ahilyabai Holkar, Abala Bose, Anandi Gopal Joshi, or Anasuya Sarabhai, Arati Saha, so on and so forth, including Cornelia Sorabji, the first woman graduate, or Durgavati Devi, Janaki Ammal, Kamala Devi. I mean, people from diverse fields of human life, from science, technology, from literature, or those who were kind of queens great queens that India had seen, including Kittur Rani Chandamma. Now, the references to all these women leaders are not adequate, according to us, which helps others portray the picture of India in the context of gender justice in a very distorted
Okay,
manner.
Dr. Srivastava, your perspective on this, because this is a concern which has not just been flagged by this panel. A number of historians have also cited in the past that Indian history, which is taught in school textbook, is very, very Delhi-centric. And as Dr. Sahasbuddin cited, the names of several great dynasties find very little mention in the history textbooks. They're not taught as elaborately as they should be. So to address this misrepresentation or underrepresentation, what should be the way forward? And can the NCERT sort of tackle this imbalance that, that the panel has pointed out?
Yeah. You see, as the title of this program is Perspective, I will give my perspective. You see, for education also, the objective is that the child, once the child is getting education, child has to connect to the family, then connect to the country, then connect to the world. Likewise, in the case of history, I feel that yes, the child has to first know about the surrounding historical facts, historical contribution of the locals, and then states and the region and the country, and then comes the world. Yes, child has to know about the world history also, but child has to first be abreast with the facts of the surroundings or the regional facts and figures. So we are in the national curriculum framework, there are 25 groups. So the groups on social science education is also there. The group is on gender education is there. Inclusion is there. Okay. Indian knowledge system is there. For example, I give you one point that there are medical history of this country also. There could be medical history of a region also. The kind of herbs, shrubs, and the contribution in the medical history of that. There are many, for example, Ayurvedic soundness of this country, metallurgical soundness of this country, scientific history. The contributions are there. First, the child should be aware about that also. Along the whole perspective has to be surrounding around what is there with us, and that is what the world around. And a comparative picture should be there in the mind of the child, at least towards the classes 11th and 12th. So I agree with that, and we are very clear that we will be work on this perspective, and national curriculum framework, the work is already on, and the focus groups, all these discussions, deliberations will be there, and we will.
In a related question, if I could also try and understand from you, because the panel talks about how the NCERT needs to relook at the guidelines of writing history textbooks. What are the existing guidelines, and does the NEP aim to bring about any kind of changes as far as rewriting history is concerned in the school textbooks? Because there is no doubt that the imbalance which exists now has to be addressed for our next generations.
You see, in fact, the guideline for writing the textbook will emerge from all the discussions and the curriculum focus group. But a few parametric points that I can put forth at the hindsight what you are just asking, that proper representations of the period, proper representation of the different area, role, means contribution in the Indian history.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For example, and there we will be, very interesting thing. This time the national curriculum framework, for the first time in the country, it is coming up from the bottoms up approach. All the state and UTs are there to first suggest us what are the best practices, what kind of things they want to be there in the curriculum framework. So all these position papers or the separate groups, subject wise or area wise, they have to suggest. So these things are to be kept in mind, and obviously the guideline will emerge from all this discussion. But surely we have to focus on reducing the content load. We have to provide opportunity for experiential learning, competency to be developed in children, learning outcome should be in a manner so that suppose I am a student of social science, I am a student of science, at particular stage these kind of competency should be in me. For example, I am a student of English language at class 11, 12. I should be able to read 20 pages and say for 10 minutes, represent the thoughts there. So these kind of competencies are there, and a proper guideline would be there for
Okay,
writing
so
the
since you
textbooks.
mentioned learning outcomes, one of the greatest setbacks that the COVID pandemic has particularly impacted is towards education. Dr. Sahasrabudhe, e-learning earlier was a thrust that Digital India put forth, and there were several initiatives to promote e-learning to make education more exciting, more inclusive. But today, e-learning has become the necessity. So looking at the challenges that the pandemic has posed, particularly for the education sector, what are the recommendations to ensure that e-learning does not impact the learning outcomes? And in a way, what the NEP desires of students, desires of the transformation that school education system have, it ensures that even with the process of e-learning, we're able to achieve that.
For the first time, the most important feature of the new education policy is the emphasis given on teacher education and thereby on teachers or teaching as a profession as well. I mean, the new education policy document, if I may refer to a 90-page small document which has been published by the ministry, at least 10 pages are devoted to teacher education and teachers. So that shows the importance given to teaching as a profession as well. And therefore, I believe in the context of new education policy, and also if we take into consideration what all that happened during the pandemic, while our report has also very emphatically suggested that we should be using graphics, QR codes, audiovisual materials, including some web-based material as well. But I believe we cannot undermine the importance of a very strong and vibrant teacher-taught relationship.
Absolutely.
And therefore, how best we can use the core of the Indian philosophy of education, which is about Guru Shishya, teacher-taught relationship, I think is something very, very critical. And I'm sure the new education policy that is now being implemented, definitely we will see a renewed emphasis on teacher-taught relationship. We cannot undermine the importance of distance education or education through internet, but that certainly cannot replace the bonding that is required between the teacher and the taught.
Absolutely. Dr. Srivastava, one last comment from you. Looking at the challenges that the pandemic has posed before the education sector, particularly the school education, how difficult is it for us to now emerge out of it? Number one, because the new variants keep on emerging, and each time the schools think of getting back to this physical classes, it is impacted. There are lockdowns, there are curfews, and we go back to our entire process of e-learning, sitting in front of the laptops. For younger students particularly, it is very, very difficult. So the challenges, of course, and another challenge that has emerged because of this is that the digital divide has creeped into the society. When we were looking at several decades back, we were talking about universal access. We were quite close to achieving it. But through this digital divide, again, there have been dropouts. There have been large sections who have been impacted by this. So looking towards all of that, what are the kind of renewed efforts that would be required to ensure that we are well on path to achieving our sustainable development goal of education?
You see, first of all, I would say that now, since we have witnessed two waves, and as you are mentioning that, in fact, we should the system should be very resilient. Now, after seeing this two wave, we all will agree with that. But for that, one thing that I would mention that from the parent side, from the system side, school side, teacher side, we have to keep in mind that we have not to over pressurize children. And when I say not over pressurizing means they have got certain interruption in the continuum of learning.
Yes.
Okay, and even if when they come back, we have to be very clear and we have to be very flexible in our assessment. And many efforts already has been made by the government side, and we as an institution also, we keep suggesting and advising. One more point I would say that on the e-learning front, e-learning at times, for example, in the recent example when we saw the pandemic, it is coming as a rescue that in the event that there is no contact, but something is reaching to the children. Now you mentioned about the digital divide. There also I would like to mention about the effort of NCERT. We are trying to reach through television also, and we are trying to reach through community radio also. So we are trying to realize the coherent access from the children's side. So these are certain efforts that we are making. We are not losing sight of the mental health of children. I tell you, that is also very important.
Yes.
And government,
in the times of pandemic, it's very, very important.
Government is also very concerned, and Sahyog and Mano Darpan, these are programs. Mano Darpan is a program where through IVRS system, any child, if he or she feels any kind of distress, they can just telephone and share their issues, and they will get a response. There are discussions on television about the mental health, emotional intelligence, resilience, all these things are there. So we
absolutely. So a lot of efforts to ensure not just equitable, but also quality education, and also looking into the aspects of mental health. So with that, I'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of the program. Thank you, Dr. Sahasrabudhe, Dr. Srivastava, for joining us on the program today and sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. It was indeed a pleasure having you on the program. So that's it from us on Perspective today. Thank you once again to all our viewers for their time.